Okay, I promise I will be brief because apparently there is a poster session and I want to make sure that everybody gets time to go see the posters. And I'm sure that's not a motivation that there is free food out there, but there is also food starting in a couple minutes. So what I would like to talk about is the future of CIMMS. And I think the important thing is we're going to want to maintain the strengths of CIMMS. That's always something that's very important. We've heard a lot about projects today that are going on but haven't been finished. Facets, MRMS, Warn-On Forecast, radar engineering, radar meteorology. There's a lot that's going on there. We have a lot of highly talented people in CIMMS. They're working on projects in collaboration, of course, with our NOAA partners. And this work is going to continue and will be a major focus of CIMMS in the near future. So what I want to talk a little bit about is acknowledging that we're going to continue with these research foci. And this is, I think, Jeff, you put these research foci up in your slide. That is going to continue. So the question is, should we be doing anything that goes beyond that? And I have a couple ideas I want to propose and just think that these are things that we can work forward towards in the future. I think in addition to some of the work we're doing here, I think that we have to expand and think about other high-impact weather events. So what are potential national threats in coming years? I think if we think about economic damage and societal impacts, heat waves and droughts are two very important areas that, we maybe don't have a lot of work going on here in CIMMS, but I think that these are things that will continue to grow in importance in the future. Landfalling hurricanes, I think, is another very important aspect. If we've taken a look, somebody showed sort of the umbrella plots of hurricane forecasts, and they get a lot of attention as they're going towards land. And then the story is really only half over once they make landfall, because some of these storms, they'll make landfall and they'll move quite quickly. Others will not move very quickly, and there will be huge amounts of precipitation associated with them after landfall, and there will be a lot of inland problems associated with landfalling hurricanes. Snowstorms. Tomorrow, I think there's going to be a nice weather event on the East Coast of the United States, and I think there's still a lot that needs to be known about snowstorms. So, for example, myself and some collaborators will be doing a project funded by NASA looking at nor'easters in the coming years. And I think this is something that, I think I'd like to see become, and I know there's a lot of other work going on in snowstorms here too as well, but I think that's a coming focus. Floods, hydrometeorology, there's a lot of work going on here on that right now. I think we need to expand on that. Tornadoes, especially in the southeast, we've talked a bit about them, learning more about that, learning more about the lead time, reducing false alarm ratios. This obviously impacts Warn-On Forecast as well. And then talking about frequency of extreme events and changing climate. Are nor'easters getting more frequent? I was asked that question last week when I gave a seminar, and I think it's a very difficult question to answer from a strictly observational perspective when the frequency of these events isn't that great to begin with. Important applications. I'm glad, Adam, you mentioned seasonal to subseasonal forecasts. We had a workshop here a couple months ago where we had a lot of military from around Oklahoma come. And, in terms of long-term climate, they acknowledged its importance, but from their perspective, what they were interested in really was seasonal to subseasonal forecasts, because that affects their planning in the coming year. Is a city going to need a lot of salt for plowing their roads? Is a military base going to have to worry about a lot of really high temperature days or, droughts? That's what they're going to worry about. Then, of course, Warn-On Forecast, probabilistic forecasts, we've talked about that. Socioeconomic aspects of high-impact weather. And then I don't think we can forget about the Arctic. the Arctic is the area of the Earth right now that is changing most due to climate change. Will that affect the continental United States and the weather patterns we get here? And do we also have to think about, forecasting for the Arctic? If the the Northwest Passage is used for shipping over the coming years, when it's not sure how long it's going to take to be ice-free, I think inevitably economic aspects may trump environmental aspects, so we may need to worry about seasonal forecasts in the Arctic. In terms of strategic goals, I think again, it was you, Adam, made the point that in a lot of your earlier slides, you pretty much exclusively had males. And it's good that we're getting a much better gender diversity. However, I think there's other aspects of diversity when I look around the room that I think that there are other underrepresented groups that we haven't done a good job in yet attracting to CIMMS, and I think that's something we have to work on in the coming years, is to continue to increase our diversity. We have a lot of educational activities on within CIMMS with the incredible number of our faculty, the incredible number of CIMMS scientists who serve as adjunct faculty in the School of Meteorology. But I think we can, and we have a lot of students too, but I think we may be even able to further increase that as CIMMS continues to grow and expand. One thing that we did last year is we established the Peter Lamb Postdoctoral Fellowship. Cassandra Shivers-Williams was our first winner, and she's right there. We're going to be advertising shortly for our second postdoctoral fellow, and I think this is a way, we named it after Peter Lamb, because it's a way sort of acknowledging his legacy and his role in educational activities. The other thing we're trying to do is we're trying to hold more symposium, brainstorming sessions on important topics to address, to try and identify pressing science issues and what we need to do in order to have a strategy for addressing those science issues so that when funding comes available for that, we'll have a strategy. If there's a new initiative from NSF or NASA that may expand upon the work, we can leverage our NOAA resources if we're ready with how to address these proposals. And this should include a major societal aspect as well. So our first one we held a couple weeks ago, Uncertainty. I won't read the whole title, but it was basically uncertainty in everything and how it impacts predictability of weather. Next year, I think we'll try and look at landfalling tropical cyclones and Arctic weather, and also looking at impacts of Arctic weather on lower latitude weather systems. Hydrometeorology and hydrology will be another, and then I think seasonal to subseasonal forecasts will continue to be more important. Eric talked a lot about field programs. There's multiple ideas. We could go even further than that, but I really think we should work on trying to get more and more of that going. Part of these field projects, there can be lots of student opportunities. Here we are in Sao Tome with some of our students in front of the NASA P3 aircraft. This is the Cloud Group. Sorry, Jens, I didn't put your team on here. But another thing I really think that we should look at is international collaborations. I really think we want to enhance the stature and reputation of CIMMS around the world, and also to both give our expertise to foreign partners, but also gain from the expertise that exists with foreign partners. We really need more collaboration there. So last week, myself and my research scientist, we were in Beijing, talking to a number of partners in China, and there was a lot of interest. They had huge interest there in trying to reinvigorate a U.S.-China Memorandum of Understanding on cooperative research on major disastrous weather and climate events that existed that sort of aged off. That was also, we could enhance collaborations with the Korean Meteorological Administration. We've been working with CAPS on that, and I think there's a lot of expertise in Korea, and I think there'd be a lot of activities there. The Finnish Meteorological Institution has wanted to collaborate us. We're going to have a visitor from Ireland coming. So there's a lot of interest there, and I think here we can really enhance our visitor program to CIMMS. We've had recent visitors from Korea, China, and Israel, and there's other countries too who want to come, so I think that will really be a growing area of interest too. And I think I'll skip the last few slides I had, which were more on the grand challenges, some nice pictures. So in the interest of time, I'll see if there's any couple quick questions, but we'll also want to move on to the poster session soon, so that there's lots of CIMMS scientists who've done a lot of really good work, and I want to make sure there's plenty of time for them to show their results. Thank you. Steve.
So, in a sense, I've been connected with CIMMS for 40 years. Like I said, being one of the first 3 employees of CIMMS, now the director of NSSL, now retiring. And M is still the center part of the acronym CIMMS, C-I-M-M-S. And when I started research with Carrie Emanuel, Carrie at the time was studying conditional symmetric instability, and I was studying gravity waves. These are mesoscale phenomena. Over the years, the past 40 years, and this has been a tremendous outpouring of research creativity on the part of CIMMS employees and students supported by CIMMS for 4 decades. The emphasis has shifted from mesoscale to convective scale. The emphasis has shifted from studying of processes so much to studying of predictability and improvements in warning and forecast skill, and developing tools for observing what needs to be studied to improve that. That's just my perception. I know Eric and I have talked a little bit about this passion that I have for, do we need to put a restored emphasis on mesoscale? That's the question. Now, I agree with everything you just said here at the end, but for example, looking at the posters, I can count 2 or 3 at the most that really are looking at mesoscale processes out of several dozen posters. Now, is that a warning sign, or is it saying, no, the things have changed because the technology's improved, the model resolution has improved, like Adam said, we're at the CAM scale now? Is it just because we have such sophisticated capability that the emphasis on process studies at the mesoscale has taken a bit of a back seat to that? What's your take on that, Greg, in terms of the next 40 years?
Okay, well, I think really, I'll give a bit of a brief answer so we can get to the poster session, but I think really it's going to be multi-scale and multi-scale interactions, which is what we really need to have an impact. And it's partly because we're able to resolve features that couldn't be resolved as well for 40 years ago. So I think mesoscale will continue to be a part and plays a role, but I really think we're expanding more to multi-scale so that we can get lots of different interactions going. So that would be my very quick answer to your question. And with that, I think if anybody has any other questions, I think we'll save them for the poster session so that the presenters can get out there. So enjoy the poster session, and I thank you very much. And I'd like to also really thank the speakers who all gave outstanding talks. Thank you very much.